Welcome to the WalterFootball.com podcast. This is episode 336. We're doing the 2021 NFC East and AFC East season previews. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm happy we've made our way across the country and are getting into the East divisions. Those are the two divisions that I tend to know the best. So I'm looking forward to diving into these teams and seeing if we can continue to agree on almost everything as we have throughout the lead up to the season so far.
Yeah, we've only had one major disagreement on the teams, which was the Saints, and that was before Michael Thomas's injury. So I think we're going to be closer on that one. So I'm excited to see if we agree on these, and we could come to 31 agreements heading into the year, which would be pretty incredible. And we've done the West, South, and North. You can check those on our channel, but we're going to do in the East this time. And before we get into that, please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video. All that would help us out. In the description, we have a link to our merch store, which is new. If you're on YouTube, you can see I am wearing a Walter football shirt, so you can order one in any color. Like I was saying last week, you can get one in orange, which might not look good, but you can do it if you want. You can get pink or purple. So yeah, you could do that via the link in our description. So we start with the NFC as usual, and the NFC East. I feel like we're going to agree which team is going to win the division. I assume you think it's going to be the Redskins, correct?
Yeah, I think it's Washington's division to lose. And look, I know a lot of people are going to be higher on the Cowboys this year because you look at what that offense did when Dak Prescott was healthy. And look, I get it. Like, the Cowboys are going to probably have a good offense if their offensive line stays healthy, but that team still has some holes on the defensive side of the ball. And Prescott, if his offensive line gets banged up, has not always been good. So I don't think they're quite on Washington's level. Washington has a phenomenal roster outside of the quarterback spot right now. I think their weakest spot outside of quarterback is probably the offensive line, but even there, they have Brandon Sheriff and they have, a handful of veteran guys who have played well for them in recent years. They were able to sign Charles Leno Jr. too to fill in as a stopgap at left tackle. They let Morgan Moses go, but I still think that the interior of their line is going to be good. And as weird as this sounds, like Ryan Fitzpatrick for them, that's an upgrade over what they had last year because Dwayne Haskins was not focused at all on playing. Alex Smith, made incredible comeback like that like bar none, probably one of the greatest comebacks in sports history. But by the end of the year, his leg was giving out again, and he just wasn't the same guy. And arguably, Taylor Heineke played better than any of their quarterbacks, but you could argue Kyle Allen before he got hurt too. But Ryan Fitzpatrick, I know he's volatile, but he's going to at least provide some downfield ability. And, he'll have a bad game every 5 or 6, maybe 7 games if you're lucky. But, he's going to provide more upside for that offense, which I think is good. And then the defense, though, that's really their calling card. They have arguably the best defense in the league. It's funny. I started covering the Washington football team 5 years ago, and their weakest position was defensive line. Like they had Chris Baker and nobody else. And now they have the best defensive line in the league. Like Chase Young could lead the NFL in sacks this year, and Montez Sweat has that same potential. They just re-signed Jonathan Allen to an extension. Deron Payne's a great nose tackle. Matt Ioannidis is coming back. The list goes on. And they added Jamin Davis at linebacker to solidify that weakest unit for them. And they signed William Jackson III to upgrade over Ronald Darby, which I think is going to go very well. So I love their potential on defense. Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio, great defensive minds. So I think that defense could make them one of the better teams in the NFC. They just have to avoid turnovers on offense and be able to steadily move the ball. I think they can do that. I think in my original projections, which I'm going to update, I had Washington finishing as the 2 or 3 seed in the NFC. I know they have a tough-looking schedule, but they're going to have a chance to, win these games with their defense. As we've seen before, teams with great defenses tend to do really well. Just think about the Steelers were 11-0 last year, and we know that wasn't because of their offense. So I think Washington has a very good chance to be one of the surprisingly very good teams in the NFL.
Yeah, I think I said we've done the NFC first each week, but I think that's the opposite. So I feel like we're doing the NFC first this time, but that's okay. I agree with you. I think the Redskins are going to win the division, and I think their offensive line might actually be better than people think. Charles Leno is not going to be an elite left tackle, but he's going to be, I think, an improvement over what they had last year. I don't think he's like fully on the decline yet. He's still got time to do well in the NFL, and I think Sam Cosmi might do better than people expect. From what I hear in practice, he's done pretty well. In fact, I was told that he had some wins against Chase Young in practice, which was really shocking to me. But he's pretty athletic, and if he's got it going right away, then that's going to be a huge boost to this team. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is definitely an upgrade over Alex Smith. Like Alex Smith was so limited in what he could do last year. And yeah, you're right. Like Taylor Heinicke was better than Alex Smith was. And now they have Brian Fitzpatrick, who is like obviously not the greatest quarterback. He's never been to the playoffs, but he's good. I mean, he did well with the Dolphins last year. He did well with the Buccaneers at times, and I think with the amount of weapons they have on the team, with like Curtis Samuel joining Terry McLaurin, and they have Antonio Gibson in the backfield, and Logan Thomas, the tight end, played very well last year. I think their offense could be pretty potent, and if it is, like this team is going to win the division easily. I think because their defense is amazing. We know about their defensive line, as you discussed. They have great starters and they have great depth. And then getting William Jackson to play corner, I think is a nice upgrade. We'll see about Jamin Davis. He's pretty raw, but he's super athletic and he has nice upside. So I think with Davis, you might have to wait a year or two, but I think he's going to help, a little bit right away at least. So yeah, this team just seemed loaded. I think last year was kind of fluky where they won the division because the rest of the division sucked. But I think they're a legitimate good team. I think they could win 10, maybe 11 games. And we'll get to the odds later, but they're not even the favorites to win the division. So I think there's a really good prop bet on them to win the division.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. And to your point on Davis, I think he's probably raw and will need time to develop too. But the one thing they were looking for in that linebacker spot is speed. Outside of Cole Holcomb, they didn't have that. Davis will provide that. And so hopefully he'll be able to do well in coverage because that was their one weakness at linebacker. But if not, they're probably going to play a lot of 3 safety looks because they got Landon Collins back from injury. Cam Curl ended up being a surprisingly good starter last year. I didn't think he was going to make the team as a rookie. I ate crow on that one. And Jeremy Reeves played pretty well. But yeah, I really like what Rivera and company have been doing with that team. They've just, they're getting the most out of them. And I think they're definitely on an upward trajectory. They're obviously not a contender yet because they don't quite have the quarterback, but they should win this easily. You're right.
Yeah, for sure. We're getting some questions coming in. We will answer them at the end. So we just get through these 2 divisions. So if there's a team to challenge the Redskins for this divisional crown, who's it going to be between the Cowboys, Giants, and Eagles?
I think I probably would give the nod to the Giants. I know a lot of Cowboys fans are going to be upset with that, but I still think that the Cowboys are maybe a half step behind the Giants. The Giants, they're similar to Washington in that they don't have a proven option at quarterback, and their offensive line has some questions on it. But I think that, you look at the defense again, the Giants have a pretty good defensive front. Their secondary is looking really good. They added Adoree Jackson. They have James Bradbury. They signed Logan Ryan last year. They have Xavier McKinney. They've got a lot of talent on that defensive side of the ball, and they drafted Azeez Ojulari in the 2nd round. They really needed some pass rush help, and I think he could provide that on the edge and really kind of unlock the upper tier potential of Leonard Williams and Dexter Lawrence. I'm a bit concerned about them losing our guy Dalvin Tomlinson, who's one of the best run stuffers in the league. But they were able to sign Danny Shelton, and they have Austin Johnson, so they can play a rotation there if they need to. I think this defense is going to be good. We saw last year they went 6-10 and nearly won the division. If the Eagles hadn't given up on the season in Week 17, they could have. But it's all going to depend on what Daniel Jones can do, what Saquon Barkley can do in his return from injury, and whether or not Kenny Golladay is healthy. Because Golladay looks like a good upgrade for that receiving core, but he's dealt with injury issues and has a hamstring injury right now. I think if he's healthy and Daniel Jones takes a step forward and really more important than anything else, cuts down on the turnovers, they'll be good. I think they're going to want to skew run heavy, whether that's relying on Barkley or splitting time with him and Devontae Booker out of the gate. I think that's going to be their plan. I don't think the Giants are going to quite make a playoff push, but I think that they're going to maybe beat the Cowboys by a game in the division, or, they might finish the same record and win the tiebreakers. I just think it's the defense for me. I think defense is so important in this division because the divisional games are always close in the NFC East. So I just prefer the Giants ever so slightly right now.
Yeah, you're right about their defense. They have a lot of good pieces on that side of the ball. But overall with this team, if we had done this podcast about a month ago, I would have completely agreed with you about the Giants being second place in this division. Now I'm not so sure. There are just so many like weird or bad things going on with this team. You mentioned the Kenny Golladay injury; he's banged up. Their first round pick, Kadarius Toney, he's banged up. He may not play for a while. Saquon Barkley is not practiced. Like that's huge. Like I think he might be back week 1, but I don't think he's going to be fully returned from that injury apparently, which is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. So that's a concern. We have the offensive line. I still don't trust. This team got into a fight, like a full team fight in one of the practices. Now, maybe that's overblown, but like Daniel Jones was at the bottom of the pile. Like what is going on there? Jason Garrett is still the offensive coordinator. I just like just so many things with this team that just irked me. Like I wish. I wish this team were better coached or coordinated. And I feel like if they were, they would have a lot more potential this year. But the fact that they have so many injuries in this fight and all this going on and like bad coaching on offense, I can't really buy into them. I wasn't going to do this a month ago, but I think I might bet the under on their win total now. I don't know what it is. I haven't looked it up, but it's kind of popped in my head recently. I'm just going to wait a little bit on Barkley. If he's like fully healthy in a couple of weeks, then I won't do it. I won't pull the trigger. But if he continues to be banged up and Golladay continues to have bad news, I'm going to bet the under.
Yeah, Barkley actually returned to practice yesterday. I only know this because I was working while he was commenting on his return. It sounds like he has a chance to play week 1. The Giants seem to think by week 3 he'll be back. So, I think that does make a difference. But yeah, you're right. These fights are concerning. I'm kind of hoping it's a competitive fire thing as opposed to a losing control from Joe Judge. But yeah, there is some concern. I'm concerned with Jason Garrett all the time. So I completely understand the concern. Like, I don't have any desire to bet this team in any way, shape, or form. I think that outside of Washington, this division is fairly weak. But I think if everything comes together for the Giants, they should be better than the Cowboys. But I get your reasons for apprehension.
Yeah, I think you could be right about that for sure. I saw the Barkley news, like that he returned to practice. I wasn't like, does that mean like he was just there stretching? Like what does that mean exactly? Like how much did he engage in practice? I'm not sure. And the fact that he may not be 100% for week 1, it is worrying because they're a completely different team without him. I liked the Giants last year, and then he got hurt week 2, and their offense just really struggled the rest of the year. They really need someone like him in the backfield because they have no viable options at running back otherwise. All right, so you mentioned the Cowboys, and we actually got a comment here. It says Cowboys will be awesome over team, probably best in the NFL. Such a bad defense, but improved offensive line, Dak, and receiving trio. So we both disagree on this. I know because we discussed this before we started recording. What are your thoughts on the Cowboys this year?
Yeah, I think that comment maybe means like over in point total on a weekly basis. Is that maybe I'm picking up wrong?
I think he meant a season. Oh, well, it could be. That could be. I read it as season win total, but I mean either way.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't prefer them as a season win total. I could maybe I bet the over in games that they play, but that number is going to be high in terms of points. But yeah, I'm with you on this one. I'm not high on the Cowboys. Once again, they're overhyped. I bet this isn't as good as the number you got last year. You got like a plus 200, like on the Cowboys not to make the playoffs this year. I think I got plus 110, plus 120 on Bovada. And I'm taking that because I love their offense here. I love the weaponry they have. I think Ezekiel Elliott will be better this year. He seems to be in better shape. That offensive line's healthier. The receiving core has a lot of weapons, and Dak Prescott is back. And, Dak Prescott's definitely a little overrated, but I mean, he's significantly better than what they were forced to trot out last year, between Andy Dalton, Ben DiNucci, and Garrett Gilbert, who actually looked decent in the Hall of Fame game. But yeah, I think they're going to score a lot of points, but how many points are they going to give up is the big question. Their defense is still a problem spot. They have kind of one good player at every level of the defense. That's how I see it right now. They have DeMarcus Lawrence, who's a very good pass rusher. They have some big names at linebacker, Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, and then they drafted Micah Parsons. I don't know how that's going to work. Like, Micah Parsons was good in the Hall of Fame game, but great, that's the first preseason game, 1. And 2, we don't know how he's going to mesh with Smith and Vander Esch, who might be skating on thin ice looking for new deals and who have had some health concerns. And then the secondary is kind of just a mishmash of different, available talents. I think Trayvon Diggs will be good, but they might be relying on Kelvin Joseph and Nashawn Wright, who is a bit of a reach, to play roles very early on in this campaign. And I wouldn't want to rely on 2 rookie defensive backs, even in a division that's kind of low on quarterback talent. I just think they're going to give up a lot of points. They're going to win games because they can score a lot, but they're going to get into a ton of shootouts. So I agree with Pat here. I think they're going to go over in a lot of games, provided that the over isn't like 60 early on when people are like trying to capitalize on the Cowboys are playing, they're going to score a lot of points type deal. But I think that this is closer to like a traditional like 500 team, and I think their ceiling is just capped. Like, if everything comes together and Dan Quinn really turns that defense around, sure, maybe they can get to 10 wins. But I don't think that's likely, and I think a lot of people think they're going to make the playoffs. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see it either. And Pat was talking about individual games. That just shows you how of a non-totals better I am. I just don't even focus on that. I don't think I've bet a total in a long time. It's been a couple of years. I don't like this Dallas team at all. Their defense is an abomination. Really, it's so bad. You're right about like them having some good players, DeMarcus Lawrence most notably, and a couple of maybe good players in the secondary. Like, they signed Malik Hooker and Keanu Neal. Those guys have like severe problems staying healthy. But if one of them could stay healthy, I think that's going to help them a little bit. A linebacker, like, we don't even know what's going to happen. Like, Parsons has amazing potential, but yeah, I mean, he played against Mason Rudolph in the Hall of Fame game, so like you just don't know what you're going to get out of him. Van Der Esch can't stay healthy. Jalen Smith was bad last year, they have problems all over the defense, and while their offense has some amazing skill position players, obviously with their receiving core, there are some issues there. Like, Amari Cooper is not healthy. We don't know if he's going to be 100% for week 1. Dak Prescott, I don't think he's completely healthy either. I heard some like lingering things, with the shoulder in practice. I wonder if that's going to affect them. And then I don't trust the offensive line to stay healthy. Tyron Smith, ever since the infamous bulging disc that was announced several years ago, he just hasn't been able to stay on the field. So if he goes down again, Prescott's protection is going to be a lot worse. And we know Prescott's a much different quarterback when he has a great offensive line versus like a mediocre or bad offensive line. So, like, while this offense looks great on paper, I'm not convinced that they're going to be so like that potent every week, unless they're playing a bad defense, of course. But yeah, I don't like the team at all. I see them winning maybe 6-7 games, something like that.
Yeah, I think I'm a tiny bit higher on them than you, but that's partially because I really like Dan Quinn as a defensive coordinator. Like, we saw Dan Quinn, the head coach, the last 2 years. Like, that's part of why I punted on the Falcons after trusting them 2 years ago, and then you fell into the same trap that I did, where you looked at the team on paper that Campbell wasn't Quinn wasn't the good coach there. But I think he'll be a good coordinator, so I think he elevates the ceiling of the defense a bit. But I think you're dead right about the offense. Like, if one offensive lineman goes down, they're in big trouble because they do not have very good depth. And if it's Tyron Smith, like, their backup, their swing tackle right now is Ty Nsekhe, who's been very good swing tackle these past handful of years, but he's 35, and he couldn't really crack the the Bills like starting lineup last year, despite their offensive line being shaky. So I think that's a little bit of a red flag for me. I wouldn't want him starting more than a few games. And then if he goes down and Lyle Collins has to miss time or Inseki has to be replaced, they have no depth really beyond him at tackle. So yeah, that's a problem, because if Prescott's under pressure, how does he trust that surgically repaired leg, and how is his shoulder doing? Like you mentioned, both of those things. So it will be interesting to see how this team turns out, but I think they're going to struggle to live up to expectations once again.
Maybe they'll sign our old friend Cordy Glenn to help with the offensive line. So, all right, the Eagles are left. There's a surprisingly high amount of optimism here in Philadelphia. It's just very surprising to me. I heard on local sports talk radio, some people are predicting 10, 11 wins, which I think is a blasphemy. I don't understand where they're coming from with that. Can you inject some realism here for the Eagles' expectations for 2021?
Whoever's seeing 10 or 11 wins looking at this team needs a serious reality check, because look, like even if you look at like their highest end upside, so like the entire offensive line stays healthy and plays well, Devontae Smith becomes the number one receiver they're looking for, Jalen Hurts lives up to his potential at quarterback. Like, yeah, sure, the offense could be good, but the defense still has massive holes in it, okay? Like, we're looking at I'm looking at the secondary right now, and they managed to sign Steven Nelson, who was cut by the Steelers. I think that was a good move. But you're still, like, outside of Darius Slade, they have Anthony Harris now, but that secondary is not very strong. The linebacker room continues to be a mess. They just refuse to upgrade anything there at all. And the pass rush, they have Brandon Graham, they have Fletcher Cox, but those guys are getting older now. And Derek Barnett's there and he's good, but like, I don't know. They just have a pretty old pass rush or injury prone. So I don't trust the defense, and I'm not a believer in Jalen Hurts either. The Eagles don't seem to be that confident in him either. He's been very inconsistent in practice. He was very inconsistent last season as well. I think they might end up having a little bit of buyer's remorse that they spent a second round pick on him, because I like his skill set, but the problem was that he was going to need some time if he was ever going to develop into something at the NFL level. I always saw him as kind of a backup gadget type player in a Taysom Hill mold. Granted, smaller player than Taysom Hill, but find a way to get the ball in his hands and he'll make some plays. But the Eagles have just kind of accelerated his path to being a starter, and I don't think that was good for him. He's got accuracy, but his feel for the game still needs some work and development. So I'm not very high on this team. I think things could go completely wrong on defense right away, and offense, it could pan out, but you're relying on so many factors. And already Andre Dillard, their left tackle, is dealing with an injury. We saw what happened to their line last year. So that falls apart around Jalen Hurts. I want no part of this team. I'm going to be avoiding them probably at all costs. This could be 5-win team, maybe even worse, because their only alternative to Hurts at quarterback, if he struggles, is Joe Flacco and Nick Mullins. So, this team has an extremely low floor, and I don't think their ceiling is very high. So, yeah, I'm very down on the Eagles right now.
Yeah, I have them winning 4 games. The only way they get to 10 wins, 10 plus, is if they trade for Deshaun Watson and he's not suspended and he could play the whole season, which, they may not even trade for him, obviously. And I suspect that he's going to be suspended at least 4-6 games, or who knows. But yeah, with Jalen Hurts, I just don't see this team doing very well. Like Hurts is, I like, obviously his rushing ability. He's great rushing ability. He's going to work hard and he's good in the locker room. But that's where the positive is end. Like, he's not an accurate quarterback. He doesn't have a big arm. I just don't see him as anything better than a good backup in the NFL. And they're going to ask him to start behind an offensive line that has problems already. You mentioned Dillard. Brandon Brooks is one of the best guards in the NFL. But you can't really trust him to stay healthy. He always seems to have some sort of issue or some injury, and he's always out. Lane Johnson always seems to be banged up. Jason Kelsey's entering, his last year probably. They drafted Landon Dickerson in case Kelsey misses time, but he has injuries as well. So I just can't trust his blocking, and the receiving core is going to be better with Devontae Smith, but he's only a rookie. So how much can you depend on him? And so the offense is going to be shaky, and the defense is going to be bad again, as you mentioned. I don't like the pass rush. I mean, Fletcher Cox is great and everything, but as a whole, the pass rush wasn't as good as usual last year. The linebacking core, I don't know, they never fix it, and their secondary is going to be slightly better with Steven Nelson, but still a liability, I think, especially at safety. So this team overall is I think the worst team in the division. Maybe they pass the Cowboys, or maybe the Giants if the Giants have serious problems and Barkley can't stay healthy. But I can't see this team getting anywhere close to 10 games unless they trade for Watson and he can play the whole year.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the only way any team is finishing worse in this division is if the Giants completely bottom out and Daniel Jones is thrust aside so that they can get a look at Clayton Thorson. So that's about the only way I can see the Eagles finishing better than someone in this division. But yeah, it's not going to be a pretty year for the Eagles. I do like some of the young pieces they have, but they've just got to they got to hit reset and figure things out. And I wouldn't be surprised if the trade deadline rolls around and they're offloading some of their veterans just for whatever they can get draft pick wise, because we don't see a ton of activity at the NFL trade deadline, but there's always one team that's willing to move a certain guy. I could see the Eagles doing that with one of their aging defensive talents this year.
I think they need to do that. They're in rebuild mode. They need to try to get one of the top quarterbacks in the 2022 draft, or maybe 2023 if they don't like any of those guys. And I think they need to start over. And I think that entails maybe moving Fletcher Cox. Eagles fans may not want to hear that because he's been such a great player. But in a couple of years, when the Eagles can finally be good again, he's going to be too old. So I think they have to just restart and just get more draft picks, because they're not getting a first-round pick from the Colts apparently, unless Carson Wentz makes a miraculous recovery from his injury. Finsdock says if the Eagles played in the AFC East, the Dolphins would beat them at least 4 times. At least being the key phrase there. All right. So to win the division, we have the Cowboys at plus 144, Giants at plus 445. Eagles at plus 530, and the Redskins at plus 179. I mentioned this already. I bet the Redskins to win the division at plus 179. I think it's a great number. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll probably do that as well. I mean, this team is clearly the best in the division, and the betting odds make it seem like they're the second. I would trust the defense in this division all day, every day, because theirs is a clear cut above anyone else's. And the only other defense that could even remotely challenge them is the Giants, and their offense has even more questions than that of Washington. So, yeah, I think that's an easy money bet at 1.8 to 1 odds. So I will be joining you on that as soon as this podcast is over. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, they should be the favorite. If I were making the numbers, I think that'd make them minus 130, minus 135, or maybe even more. Maybe minus 150, because I just don't like the rest of these teams. It would take a colossal number of injuries for the Redskins not to win it. I think. I just think the other teams suck. Super Bowl odds. Dallas is the favorite here at 33 to 1. The Giants at 100 to 1, the Eagles also 100 to 1, and the Redskins at 42 to 1. I don't know about this one. I mean, do you see Ryan Fitzpatrick winning a Super Bowl? It's so tough to imagine. But then again, Peyton Manning in 2015 could barely throw, and they won because of their elite defense. I don't think it's impossible. I just don't know if I can really pull the trigger on that number, even though it should be lower, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd pull the trigger on that one either, because of Fitzpatrick, like you said, all it would take is him having one bad playoff game. And we know he's capable of throwing 5 picks in a game. So I wouldn't take him at that number. Luckily, I'm pretty sure I already bet them at 70 to 1 to win the Super Bowl early in the offseason. It was either, I'm going to check on that, because it's either 70 or 50 something to 1. But yeah, 42, I could see doing a little bit on it, but I think there are better options out there.
Okay. Yeah. 70 to 1 is pretty good. I think that's much better than 42 to 1. If you're looking to bet a team in that range, Arizona is anywhere between 40 to 1 or 50 to 1. I think Arizona is one of the better teams in the NFL. I have them 5th in my power rankings. So that's the long shot I want to take. But if I somehow could get 70 to 1 on the Redskins, I think I would do that. All right, let's jump to the AFC East, and I think we both agree the Bills are going to win the division. I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL. With Josh Allen entering his fourth year, I mean his leaps from year 1 to year 2, and then year 2 to year 3 were amazing. I can't wait to see what we see in year 4. So, what are your thoughts on the Bills? How far can they go?
Just to wrap up that last point, I did get 70-1 odds, and that's why you should always make some bets before free agency happens, because the odds get a little bit different once you know what's happening. And if you bet low odds, they're going to go up. So the way I said that made no sense. But anyway, on to the Bills.
Well, let's just say people can trust you on that because you got the Bucks last year at 50-1, right? So
50-1. If you can anticipate that they're going to get upgrades in some area, especially quarterback, then you better bet them before they get that quarterback upgrade. And Fitzpatrick, as weird as it sounds, was a quarterback upgrade. So, yep.
Yeah, that's great bet. So I will take your advice on getting those early. So, all right. So what are your thoughts on the Bills?
I think that they're going to be the best team in this division. I mean, you mentioned it. Josh Allen is the best quarterback in this division. That mantle belonged to Tom Brady for almost 20 years, and now Josh Allen is taking it on easily. He has tons of weapons on offense. Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and both you and I are high on Gabriel Davis, but if for whatever reason, if he struggles in his second year, they have Emmanuel Sanders. So there are 4 good receivers. The offensive line has some questions, but I think they'll come together because they're largely keeping continuity this year. The only thing they're lacking is a running game. It's going to be a committee between Zach Moss and Devin Singletary, which isn't that exciting, but Allen does enough with his legs that they're going to be able to run the ball still. And defensively, this team's once again very, very good. They have Tre'Davious White, who's arguably the best corner in the league right now. They've had strong safety play for years now. That Jordan Poyer, Micah Hyde duo is really fun to watch. And they continue to add depth and talent up front on their defensive line. They have a lot of different pieces that Sean McDermott and Leslie Frazier are going to mix and match up there. And they were able to re-sign Matt Milano, which was huge for them on defense because he, when he missed time last year, he was the glue that helped the secondary and the defensive line play together very well. But now that he's back, they're not going to have to worry about missing him, provided that he can stay healthy. So I really like this team. I think they're one of the deepest in the AFC. I think even if they suffer some injuries, they're still going to win this division pretty easily. I think I had them going 13-4, maybe. I think in my preview. So I think that they're going to win this division easily and be the second seed in the AFC behind only the Chiefs.
Yeah, I have one more win. I've been 14-3, so we agree pretty much on that front. This team is stacked, I feel like. And last year they went 13-3 and they had injuries. Offensive line, they were never completely healthy up front. On the defense, Matt Milano missed a handful of games. So if everything can come together this year with health wise, I think this team could go the distance. Obviously, they have to get by Patrick Mahomes, and to do that, you need a great pass rush. I don't know if they're there yet, though. That's the only issue I feel like with this team. I know they don't have a running game, as you mentioned, but I feel like that's okay because given how well they throw the ball, just their pass rush, I'm not sure because they have so many young players. They drafted 2 in the first couple rounds this year: Gregory Rousseau, Carl Basham. They have some other young players up front. And who knows, maybe one of these guys, or maybe 2 of these guys emerges, Ebenezer from last year as well. If that happens, if they emerge, if at least one becomes an elite pass rusher or 2 become very good pass rushers, I think they'll have a chance to beat the Chiefs because you have to get pressure on Mahomes without blitzing. Otherwise, he's going to kill you. So if the Bills can do that, then they'll have a chance. If not, if these guys take longer to develop, then they're not going to beat the Chiefs. I think that's what it comes down to. But otherwise, I think they're the second best team in the conference. I think they're going to have another great year.
Yeah, I agree with you on the pass rush. I think they might be a year away from having the volume of pass rush weapons needed to pressure Mahomes and other elite quarterbacks of that ilk. But, that's not going to hold them back from being a big time winner. It's just get to the AFC Championship game, or if the Browns progress enough, if they get into a tough battle with Baker Mayfield and they can't pressure him, which is his biggest weakness, that would be the thing to watch. But yeah, no, I'm pretty bullish on the Bills overall, though. would not find it surprising if they make it to the AFC Championship again. And if their pass rush outperforms expectations, they could beat the Chiefs. But it's going to be tough getting by that offensive line with the defensive players they have right now on that line.
Yeah, I would say if the Chiefs didn't make these upgrades to their offensive line, I would make the Bills even the favorite to win the conference. But as we discussed several weeks ago, the Chiefs made so many great upgrades up front. It's going to be tough. So we have Finn's saying the Dolphins are set up to beat the Bills once this year. I suppose that can happen, and I assume you think that the Dolphins are going to be the team to challenge the Bills for the division if the Bills suffer, some injuries. So, am I right about that? What do you think about the Dolphins?
I actually think the Patriots would challenge the Bills more. So there's our second disagreement in our 8th podcast about the season. But I think the Dolphins can beat the Bills, and I don't think the Patriots are like worlds better than the Dolphins either. We'll get into that in a minute. I just think that they're slightly better than people are thinking. But yeah, I think if the Dolphins can defend well enough against Josh Allen and move the ball on the Bills defense, they have the weapons needed to do the latter. It's more about containing Allen. I think they could beat them once. But I think it'll be a tall task. They'd probably have to get it done at home because I don't think Miami's going to win in Buffalo. I don't know when they're playing there this year, though. If it's early in the season, maybe they'd have a shot.
Yeah, I think this Miami team is pretty good. I think they might be able to beat the Bills once. I would put my money on a sweep if I had to bet it, but I think they could challenge them. That one game in Miami last year, I think it was week 2. It was a close game, and the Bills they won but didn't cover the spread, so it was a pretty tight game. I like this Dolphin team overall. I just worry about their offensive line. I'm not convinced they can protect Tua, but I expect Tua to play a lot better this year. He struggled last year as a rookie. He was definitely a downgrade from Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I think we expected that because he wasn't a full year recovered from his injury. And that really surprised me that they would put him in like that. And, on the positive side, he's gotten experience. On the negative side, it was kind of bad experience because, he struggled at times, played very well at times too. He had some great games for sure. But then he was benched a couple of times, against the Raiders, week 16. So yeah, I mean, if Tua can advance like I expect them to, the Dolphins I feel like will make the playoffs because their defense should be great once again. They forced so many turnovers last year, and Brian Flores I think is a phenomenal coach. So he's going to get the most out of his players, and we'll see what happens with some of their new players. Like they drafted Jalen Phillips. He has some injury concerns, but the pass rush. I feel like was one of the few weaknesses they had on defense last year. So if he can improve the pass rush, their defense is going to go to another level. So it's all about Tua and the offensive line for me.
Yeah, that I actually share pretty much the same sentiments, but I'm just very concerned about the offensive line right now. Like they just have so many young players up there, and I feel like they've downgraded that whole unit since last year. And just a little bit. Like I know the young players are getting more experience, but Eric Flowers wasn't any great shakes, but he was experienced. Ted Karras started at center last year. Now they have Michael Dieter and Matt Skura battling for that job, at least according to this depth chart I'm looking at right now. And I like Ted Karras, but I like Ted Karras, and these two guys have some potential, but I think Ted Karras is better. I like the Liam Eichenberg pick. I like Austin Jackson's upside, but they just don't have much depth up front. So if any of these young guys don't work out, they're going to be at a loss for how to protect Tua. And I think Tua is going to take a step forward. He has a lot of weapons to work with, but if he's under pressure, that could force him into mistakes or throwaways, that we see from young quarterbacks, and that's not abnormal. So I think Flores will do a lot will get a lot out of this team. I think the defense is really starting to come together nicely. That secondary in particular looks really good. They signed Justin Coleman away from Detroit after he was cut, and I think that he had some of his best days with the Patriots, and obviously Flores will know how to use him properly with Byron Jones, Xavier Howard, and then Noah Igbinoghene is there too, that first round pick from 2020. So I like what they're doing on defense a lot. It's just a matter of will the offense come together? If the line doesn't come together, I think that could push them just a hair behind the Patriots, who I think may have the best offensive line in this division, which is the tiebreaker for me between them. Frankly, it wouldn't surprise me to see either the Dolphins or the Patriots finish in second place, but I'm rolling with the Patriots right now.
Okay. Well, yeah, the offensive line is the problem, and I really wish they drafted Penei Sewell. Like, how much better would this team look right now? I know Jalen Waddle has a lot of potential. He could be a great receiver. I feel like they were good at receiver with Will Fuller and Devontae Parker. I don't think they need to make that pick. So it's nothing against Waddle. He could be a great player. I just wish they drafted Sewell to really improve the offensive line and make sure Tua doesn't get hurt or isn't as skittish in the pocket as he was at times last year. If Finn's doc saying that he's killing it in camp, and I would believe that. The problem is, like, what's going to happen in real action when the players are actually trying to hit him. I think that might make things look a little different at times. But I think, like I said, I feel like we're going to see a big upgrade from Tua this year, especially considering that he's more than a year, almost 2 years now, removed from that brutal injury he suffered at Alabama. So you say the Patriots are going to finish second in the division. Please sell me on the Patriots, because I don't think they're going to be terrible or anything, but I'm not very optimistic about them.
Well, it might be hard for me to sell you on them because I know you're not really a Mac Jones guy, but here's my theory on this team. Obviously, the offensive line is what I love the most about them, right? Like, they brought back Trent Brown, and I know they lost Joe Thuney in free agency, and he's been like an Iron Man at guard, but they had Mike Onwenu, who started at right tackle last year, but is a natural guard ready to take over for him. So their interior line between Onwenu, David Andrews, and Shaq Mason is already very, very strong. Trent Brown was one of the best tackles in the league when he played with the Patriots 2 years ago, or 3 years ago now, maybe. So they're going to get the most out of him again. Then the wild card is, will Isaiah Wynn stay healthy? When he's been on the field, he's been good. The problem has been keeping him there. If he can do that, their starting 5-man units, I think, clear-cut best in this division. And their depth is good, too, because they signed Ted Karras, who already had experience with the system. And they have a couple of recent draft picks that can play guard and tackle, Justin Herron, William Sherman. And, I don't know if Yadni Kajus is going to do anything in his third year, but they have a lot of depth that has experience in the system. Their receivers aren't inspiring, but they'll run a lot of 2 tight end sets with Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry. And then, there'll be a run-heavy team. Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson should do well. Stevenson might be a LeGarrette Blount type, which will fit well. And then offensively, I think you're going to have to be a believer in Mac Jones to like the Patriots' potential, because Cam Newton will stay healthy for some time and be a solid starter, but once he gets hurt, Jones is going to come in. And Jones, by all accounts, has looked good in camp so far. He's been accurate. He's been passing in rhythm. And I think having such a strong offensive line is going to help him, because he's not going to be under a ton of pressure. We saw at Alabama that he didn't have to deal with a lot of pressure and was extremely accurate. Had a Joe Burrow-like season, but people didn't like to talk about it because he wasn't as explosive as Burrow was athletically or with his arm strength. So offensively, I think Jones can keep this unit afloat. Defensively, I think people are sleeping on this defensive unit. They had so many opt-outs last year, including Dante Hightower, and a few other people, but now they're getting all of them back. In addition to the talent they already have up front, they're super deep in the secondary. I know Stephon Gilmore has some contract concerns, but he will come back at some point, I would imagine. And that secondary looks great. They re-signed Kyle Van Noy, who's a great fit for the Patriots system, and they added a ton of depth up on their defensive front. Defensive tackle and interior defensive line was a weakness for them last year. That's part of why they weren't good against the run. They shouldn't have those same issues this year. So I think they could return to being a top 10 defensive team. And if that happens, they just need their offense to be able to move the ball. Now, I get it. Like Newton and Jones, it's kind of a scary proposition, but I think that they're going to work out better behind a better offensive line. The offensive line was not as good as people expected last year. I think this year it's going to be better than people expected.
Let me ask you this. So Dante Scarnecchia is not there anymore. Obviously he retired after 2019, and he wasn't there last year. But do you think that his absence could make the offensive line not as good as it could be?
I think it will definitely take the offensive line down a notch, but that was going to happen regardless. And I think you saw some of the regression from the players last year, right? But now they're getting players like they're bringing in upgrades to both depth and starting positions, in my opinion. And we saw them turn Mike Onwenu, who was a 6th-round pick, into a solid starter. So I don't think they're completely lost on the offensive line. The unit would be better if Scarnecchia was there, but I'm not particularly worried about his absence this year, even though he did a good job with Trent Brown. So that could be something to watch.
Yeah, I also wonder about Trent Brown's health. Can he stay on the field? So I feel like this offensive line has the potential to be top 5 in the NFL. But I feel like there are some concerns about it. So I'm not completely sold on it, although I think you're probably right about the blocking. I think it's going to be pretty good. It's not like I'm completely bearish on the Patriots. I have them 9-8 in the division, so they could certainly make the playoffs and maybe finish second if maybe the Dolphins suffer a lot of injuries. But I still like the Dolphins more, and yeah, it has to do with the quarterbacking. Cam Newton is not going to stay healthy the whole year. We know that. He just hasn't done that in a long time. And if he does, then the Patriots are going to do a lot better. But I guess our big disagreement is Mac Jones. I just didn't like him at all. I didn't get it. And the fact that, all those teams passed on him that needed quarterbacks, like Denver passed on him. The Bears could have took him. They didn't. The Vikings, they could have drafted Mac Jones. They didn't. We had some scouts or people in personnel departments telling us that they thought Mac Jones was the next Matt Barkley. And granted, that doesn't mean that he's going to be bad. Quick story. There's one personnel guy in a front office I really respect. He does a great job. But he made a big mistake with Deshaun Watson. He thought Deshaun Watson belonged in the 3rd round. There's one huge error I heard him make. And, so scouting is not a perfect science. You can be wrong about that. But I guess it would take a lot of teams that need a quarterback to be wrong about Mac Jones because several passed on him. But, he could be good, but still he's going to be a rookie either way. And, that's going to come with some struggles. And what I worry about is the receiving core as well. I know they added some good tight ends. But Kendrick Bourne, I feel like is not that good. Nelson Aguilar, I think that was a fluky year last year with Greg Olsen. Greg Olsen's going to get the best out of him. And Jacoby Myers has been the best receiver in training camp, which is okay. How optimistic can you be about a team when Jacoby Myers is your top receiver? I like him a little bit, but that doesn't say good things about the other guys. So I agree with you about the defense and the offensive line. So it comes down to the quarterbacking and the receivers.
Yeah, I think that the Patriots are going to skew pretty run heavy this year too, though. That's part of why I'm not as worried about it, because they added the 2 tight ends who obviously help as receivers, but they'll help in blocking as well. So I think because there's a strong running game there, because Damian Harris should be good, Stevenson should be good. I don't think Sony Michel is going to make the team. Well, you have James White coming out of the backfield too, and he can take it between the tackles as well. So I think they're going to rely on their weapons out of the backfield a lot to move the ball. And, if Cam's healthy, he can scramble as well. So I think you're going to see a lot of that happening, which is why I think the passing ability of the quarterback early as they kind of get seasoned and figure out how things work with the receiving core. I do think the receivers are a big concern, though, because I'm not sold on Nelson Aguilar either. I didn't think he was a good fit for the Patriots because, he's a downfield type guy, and I don't feel like Cam Newton or Mac Jones is really going to be looking for deep ball threats. They're more rhythm passers, in my opinion. At least him is at this stage in his career, at least.
Yeah, I agree. I just didn't get the signing. And I feel like, we talked about this before. I think they overpaid for their tight ends. Hunter Henry's an amazing talent, but he always seems to be banged up, and Jonnu Smith has never really lived up to his potential, and the potential is there. So I just not sold on this team, but I think they can win 9, maybe 10 games. So it's not like I hate this team or anything. I think they're okay. I think they can get second in division, but I like the Dolphins a little bit more. All right. So we have the Jets. So I assume we think they're going to be in the basement once again, but good news is they can't be as bad as they were last year. Probably not. We'll see. So what are your thoughts about the Jets going into 2021?
First thought is I really like their coaching staff. I think Robert Saleh is doing a really great job just from what I've seen him doing in training camp. And I like the hire in the first place anyway. I think he's a good defensive mind and a great motivator. I think this is just a building year for the Jets. They've added a lot of talent to their team. Zach Wilson's their quarterback of the future. We'll see how that works out. They got him a good weapon in Elijah Moore. They got him some extra blocking in Elijah Vera Tucker and Morgan Moses. So I like those. I think the defense is just the problem here. They're still working on adding talent there. I think that unit could be very weak this year. Obviously, they signed Sheldon Rankins and Carl Lawson, which will help Quinn and Williams up front in the pass rush. But that back seven is not necessarily in good shape. That might be putting it kindly. So I think they're going to give up a lot of points. It's going to take their offense a little bit of time to get together. I think by the end of the year, though, we'll see like what Zach Wilson can do, because I think his offensive line looks solid, not great, but solid. And there's a lot of receivers on that team that could be pretty good. You know, they got to figure out who they want to keep. I think they overpaid a bit for Corey Davis, but they also have Denzel Mims in addition to Moore, and then Jameson Crowder's still there. So there will be enough for Zach Wilson to work with. I just think he's going to take some time to develop at the next level. I've been saying that about him and Trey Lance throughout the lead up to the draft process, and I think they're going to spend some time working through growing pains as rookies. So I think the Jets, they're not going to be as bad as they were last year, and I think they'll have a late season surge, but I see them as more of a 5-6 win team right now.
Yeah, you know, they won 2 games last year, and I think they were both fluky wins. I feel like the Rams didn't take them seriously, and they lost. And then they played a Browns team that was missing its entire receiving core. So, you know, it wasn't real. I don't think that was a real win either. But I think this team will definitely be better this year. I think they're going to win maybe 4 or 5, possibly 6 games. I think they'll be competitive in most of their games, not against the Bills or anything, but against most teams, I think they'll fight hard, and they won't get blown out as easily as they did last year. I like the addition they made to the offensive line. Elijah Vera Tucker is going to help a lot because the interior blocking was bad last year. Zach Wilson will be better than what they had at quarterback. Their coaching will be better. Their defense should be a little bit better. You know, they still have some big holes like linebacker and secondary, like you said. But, you know, with Robert Saleh, I feel like he's going to improve the defense at least. So the defense won't be one of the worst units in the NFL. I think maybe like it'll probably be like in a bottom tier, but not like the worst tier. So I think like they're going to be better all around. You know, at most positions, they're going to be better this year. So, yeah, like I said, they're not quite there yet. A lot of their success in 2021 is going to depend on Zach Wilson. Is he the right guy? You know, like you could argue Justin Fields should have been the pick, or maybe even Trey Lance. So we'll see what happens with Wilson. He was a 1-year wonder at BYU. It was an amazing year, but it was still a 1 year. I'm not completely sold on him. I don't hate him or anything. I think that he has great potential. I just don't know what to think about him. But yeah, overall, like I said, probably 5 wins is the most likely result.
Yeah, I think 5 wins is probably the way to go, and I think you nailed it with Zach Wilson. This is how I feel about all 5 of the quarterbacks. Like, I think they're all going to end up being good. It's just a matter of who's going to develop quicker. Like, we've seen it with the Josh Allen class of quarterbacks. You know, the first 3 years, it was like, oh, it was the year of Baker, then the year of Lamar, and then last year was the year of Josh Allen. Like, I feel like with this 5 first-round quarterbacks class, we could see like, oh, it's the year of Trevor Lawrence. Oh, it's the year of Justin Fields. Oh, it's the year of Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Mac Jones. It's just who's going to develop quicker, and that's going to shape perception early. But when we look back 5 years in the future, which is, I believe, when you do your draft regrades or redrafts, those are like kind of the key mark of like, all right, this was the right move, or oh, this did not work out at all. So, but I have faith that all 5 of these guys will develop well.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how it unfolds. And maybe another 2018 quarterback. Maybe Darnold will be. This will be his year, and then I guess Josh Rosen after that. We'll see about that. All right, odds to win this division. Bills are at -163. Dolphins +408. Patriots at +275. So Vegas agrees with you. And then the Jets at +3,700. Do you like anything here?
I probably won't bet this because I think the Bills are like clear cut above, but that number's not very good. And the only way that the Dolphins or the Patriots win this division is if Josh Allen gets hurt and Mitch Trubisky has to start, and the whole, system falls apart in Buffalo for long term. And I just don't want to bet on that happening because it's not fun to do that. And there's like outside of that scenario, there's no reason to believe that the Dolphins or Patriots will beat the Bills. So I'm going to sit this one out in terms of betting. I'd rather rather just bet on the Bills to do something else. Probably their over win total would be more appealing to me.
Yeah, I think so too. I wouldn't bet this either, but I guess I'll make Finstock happy and say I feel like the best value here is Dolphins plus 408, because we disagree on this, but I think the Dolphins are better than the Patriots, and I think if Josh Allen gets hurt or if the Bills suffer wholesale injuries across the depth chart, which can happen. Look at the Niners last year. I think the Dolphins would take the division, and plus 408 obviously way more appealing than plus 275. So yeah, I think they're the best value. If I were to bet this, I would bet the Dolphins plus 408, but I'm not going to do it like you.
I don't disagree with you about the value. I want to say that I would also bet the Dolphins because I don't think that they're that far separated from the Patriots. I still think the Patriots finish in second, but if I had to bet one, I'd bet the Dolphins.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. And you know what? If they were reversed, if the Patriots are plus 408, I'd say the Patriots were the best bet. So yeah, there it is. So to win the Super Bowl, Bills are 11.5 to 1. Dolphins are 36 to 1. Patriots 23 to 1. And the Jets are 220 to 1. So what do you envision betting the Bills or maybe the Patriots?
Probably not. I think the odds are too short on the Patriots there. Like, I think that they could make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game, but they don't have the upper end talent at quarterback or receiver to, compete with the Chiefs or something like that. If they were to go that far. And the Bills, I think I'd rather just bet on the Chiefs. I know the odds are shorter, but I'd rather, I don't know. I could see betting the Bills at that number, but I think the Browns, I think, were at 16 to 1 last I checked. So I probably would bet them as the hedge to the Chiefs if I had to.
So if the Bills were 16 to 1, would you bet them at that number?
Yeah, I would bet the Bills at 16 to 1. Was that the number they were at? I may have misheard.
Oh no, they're 11.5 to 1. This is on Bookmaker. I think I saw the Bills at 14 to 1 in one of the sports books in Vegas. I can't remember it correctly, but I remember seeing that number and I almost bet it. And then I was like, but they have to beat Patrick Mahomes. So I think if I saw 18 to 1, I think I'd bet it. 16 to 1, I think about it. 14 to 1, it's still too low because I didn't do it. So. That is it for our season previews. We had a couple of questions or, some comments. Pat asking if Chase Young over 8.5 sacks, is that easy money?
I say yes. I just bet at 22 to 1 odds Chase Young to lead the NFL in sacks because I think he could do it. And 22 to 1 odds are they were much longer than I thought they would be for him. I thought he was going to be like a 14 to 1. So I think over 8.5, sign me up. I think he's going to get double digits if he stays healthy.
Yeah, I think I'd take the over there. It seems like a low number. If you were a defensive tackle like Aaron Donald, defensive tackles typically get lower sack totals. But as great as Donald is, but still, like the edge rushers tend to get the higher sack numbers. So, unless he gets hurt, I think 8.5 sacks should go over. With some other bet props from Pat, Texans worst record plus 200, Bucks best record plus 525. Derrick Henry, most rushing yards, plus 330. Justin Herbert, 30 passing touchdowns. There's no number on that. Does anything stand out to you as a good bet there?
I would not mind Buck's best record at plus 525 because we talked about this on here. They have so much continuity there. And I think their division is only getting weaker by the day because I think that, the Saints are not looking like much of a challenge. Like when we did the NFC South podcast 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, Sean Payton could cause some trouble, but they're just looking like a mess right now. So, and I don't think the Panthers are quite there yet. And the Falcons have a lot wrong with them. So I think they could win a lot of games in their division. If they start quickly, they could, go get 15 wins. So I like that one.
Okay. Let's see here. I think this is the last question. We kind of addressed all the other comments. In your opinion, which is the best football player in the world? Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Neymar, Mbappe, Robert Lewandowski. I don't know these other guys. I assume this is CFL. What do you think?
This is actually international soccer here. If I had to pick right now, it'd be tough. It's tough to do it between Messi and Ronaldo, but Messi's Argentina squad just won the Copa America South American Soccer Championship. It was his first major title win, so I'm going to give it to Messi right now.
I thought this was CFL, so I don't think I should answer the question. All right, I don't know any of those guys. So yeah, that is it for this week. Like I said before, please hit like, subscribe, share this video, comment below. All that would help out, and we have the merch store in the description. Do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I'll be posting some of my fantasy football and football related content soon. We've got stuff coming up at Sporting News. You can go to sportingnews.com to check out the NFL and fantasy tabs for all your latest news. I'll post my fantasy offensive line rankings soon. Position battles to watch is coming up. And I just posted something on coaches and the new coaches and coordinators and their run pass tendencies. So see if we can learn anything from fantasy through that. So I'll post those links on social media in the coming days. So keep an eye out for those.
That's awesome. Yeah, that'll be interesting to read. Like I said last week, I'm looking forward to the fantasy offensive line rankings. I think that's super important. And if you want to get you kind of a leg up on the rest of your league mates, learn the offensive lines because it's so important and how players are going to do fantasy wise. I'm at walterfootball.com. We have tons of fantasy content. I updated sleepers and busts today. I'm going to update values again. We have rankings, cheat sheets, whatever you need to get ready for your fantasy draft. And next week, we're going to be doing a fantasy mock draft, maybe one later this week as well. So look out for that. But otherwise, I will talk to you next week.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you then.
All right. Bye.